Loyola Chicago is headed back to the Final Four thanks in 100% large part to Sister Jean. Take a look at the picture of her back in 1963, the last time Loyola Chicago went to the Final Four. We dug this one up 55 years ago.
Loyola Chicago won that championship in '63. The only team from the state of Illinois ever to win a national championship in college basketball. And that '63 team, Chiris Broussard, started 4 black players in the era when you're only supposed to start 2. That kind of set the tone for what happened in 1966 with Texas Western.
Did you see?
They have an amazing history.
Yeah, did you see on the game, the Final 8 game, Jerry Harkness?
Yeah, was the best.
I grew up with him and his family, and he was one of my first basketball coaches. Coached me in 5th and 6th grade. Yep.
You know how he decided to play basketball?
No.
Someone saw him playing at the Y, and when he was a junior in high school, was like, you should try out for the team. That someone was Jackie Robinson.
Wow.
The Y in Harvard.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and you knew Jerry.
I knew him very
Teaching you
well.
something new every day.
Hello, Mr. Harkness.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. That's awesome.
All right, time for some stories to start your morning. Tournament madness, speaking of which. Villanova advances to the Final Four with a win over Texas Tech. The Wildcats have won their 4 tournament games by an average of over 18 points. Nick, what do you think? Is Villanova looking like the favorite to win this all?
Man, they've got competing karma going against them. In their favor, Chris Carter has gotten the coach to stop wearing a tie bar, and evidently since then they're undefeated. Going against them, I picked them to win the championship, and I think I've missed the last 5 champions across all sports. I think they're the best team. I think they're the most complete team. I think they're the most battle-tested team. I think they have the best coach remaining, and that's nothing against Bill Self, John Beilein. I really like this team going into this season. I like this team going into the tournament, and they've had no close calls. I mean, they are just beating people soundly every single weekend.
I agree with what you said. I picked them before the tournament began as well. What a run it would be for Jay Wright. It's already been a great run, but if he can win this, you got 2 titles in 3 years in this era, that would be phenomenal. I love the kid Dante DiVincenzo.
Yep.
He's a high flyer. He's hitting threes. He's had some phenomenal moments in this tournament. And then Jalen Brunson, I covered his dad, Rick, when he played with the Knicks. Jalen's a great all-around point guard. Smart, savvy.
He's awesome.
Never seems to make a bad play.
If Villanova wins this title, Jay Wright will have more championships than Bill Self, Tom Izzo, Jim Boeheim, Coach Cal. Like, 2 championships. It's hard to get 2 championships, man.
And that's at Villanova, which we know is, I wouldn't say
not a blue
traditional.
blood. It's not a blue blood.
But it's, yeah.
Kansas punched their ticket to the Final Four with an overtime win over Duke. Freshman Wendell Carter getting called for the foul here and fouling out with 2:49 left in overtime. Looked like he set his feet. Refs felt otherwise. What did you think? Chiris Broussard, did the refs cost Duke the win here?
They didn't cost them the win. Duke was up 3 with 30 seconds left in regulation. You know, that's a game you have to win, especially if you're a program like Duke and got a great coach like Mike Krzyzewski. But this was a terrible call. That call was bad, and what made it even worse is that was his 5th foul, so you get him out of the game. Again, not going as far as to say the refs cost him, but that call was horrible.
I thought that was a horrible call, but the refs didn't cost him the game more than Grayson Allen did. You mentioned you got to win the game up 3 with 30 seconds left. Well, after Kansas ties the game, I know everyone's like, oh, Grayson's shot almost went in. That was a terrible shot from a player who was ice cold up to that point in the game. I don't think he had made a basket in the second half of that game. And then in overtime, he took consecutive terrible threes. Like, Grayson was bad yesterday. To put a bow on what to me was a justifiably unlikable collegiate career. The refs, I hated the call. I mean, to be fair to Duke, like, I thought that was a charge. I thought that was a charge, and that was a game-changing call, not just because Kansas gets the 1 point at the foul line, but as you mentioned, Duke's second-best player fouled out. He'd been battling foul trouble all night, couldn't really get in a rhythm until the tail end of the game.
All right, to the NBA now. The Trailblazers beat the Thunder last night. Melo struggled mightily. Only scored 6 points on 3 from 13 shooting. Where did he go to? He went to school where?
Syracuse.
Ah, that's right.
Champion.
Chris, does it worry you seeing the Thunder
winner.
struggle
Hall of Famer.
against tough competition? All right, let's just talk about Melo
18th
then.
all-time points per game NBA history.
How's he doing this year?
I love Melo. I'm a big Melo fan, and that's why I say, Melo, I implore you. I'm like the Spurs meeting with Kawhi Leonard. I implore you. You've got to be better than you've been lately. Last 2 months, Melo's only given them 13 points a game on 37% shooting. And this is look, I get it. It's his 15th year. Not everybody ages like LeBron. Chris Bosh is out of the league, same draft. Dwayne Wade on his last leg, same draft. Melo, same draft. Not as far gone as Wade, but clearly not himself anymore. This is a chance, though, for him to get deep in the playoffs. A rare chance. He's got to deliver.
You mentioned not as far gone as Wade. Right now, this moment.
Close,
right now, this moment. If the Thunder could, they obviously can't. Wouldn't they switch him out? And say, hey, because D-Wade's fine coming off the bench. D-Wade's okay with that role. One of the issues with Melo has been, do you remember the press conference before the year when someone asked him about coming off the bench? And he turns and says to the PR guy, I don't know the guy's name, but I'm going to call him Jerry. Jerry, they got me coming off the bench now. And listen, I thought Melo would be better than that. Matt is who it was. I thought that he'd be better than this, but he hasn't been. I know you got to start him. You don't have to finish games with him. The way he's shooting, you can't be the defensive liability Melo is and then also shoot 37%, especially when you're going to be in these high leverage moments in the postseason. I thought he'd be better. He is markedly worse than he was last year, and I know the role's different, but it's an easier role, I thought.
Hey, finally, guys, the Kawhi Spurs drama continues. He still hasn't played, and the Spurs aren't thrilled about it. On Friday, Tony Parker said his own quad injury was, quote, 100 times worse than Kawhi's. Dem's fighting words.
Wow.
Nick, what do you make of Tony Parker's comments?
Those are shocking comments. As I put it on Twitter, that is Tony Parker off the top rope, right on Kawhi's head. And you don't hear this type of stuff from the Spurs. You now have a better idea as to why maybe that team meeting leaked, when typically those things don't leak from the Spurs. The Spurs are obviously perplexed at what's going on. And I understand that Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili have possibly slightly divergent objectives, incentives than Kawhi, because they're thinking this could be our last best chance to win a title. Like, Parker went from starter to bench player this year. Manu, I would be shocked if he comes back for another season. Like, hey, man, let's go try to win a title. And this was, by the way, before they knew the Warriors were going to be without Steph in the first round. That could be a first-round matchup, Warriors-Spurs. And I'm sure the Spurs feel
with Kawhi, they feel like they could beat them.
We can go do that, whether they're right or not. So I cannot speak for how Kawhi feels physically, obviously. But I am very confident in saying this. The Spurs organization as a whole thinks he should be playing. So from the medical staff to the coaching staff to the players, maybe they're being unfair to him, but they clearly think he should be playing. And I can't ignore, Chris, the rumblings from before the year about maybe not being happy in San Antonio, definitely not being happy about the shoe contract, and now this slow lag of when is he coming back from a quad injury? The medical staff cleared him on a month ago.
Yeah, this is an incredible situation. Knowing Tony Parker, having talked to him, I don't know if this is a cultural barrier or what, but Tony is a straight shooter. Now, and these words are strong and they are harsh, and I don't disagree with your depiction of that's him going off the top rope like Jimmy Superfly Snuka, okay? However, there's a small part of me, and not even small, there's a decent part of me that feels like Tony wasn't so much taking a shot at Kawhi as he was just giving his honest opinion. Like, it was the same injury essentially. His was viewed as worse by the doctors and medical staff, and so he's baffled that why Kawhi's not out there playing. Now, what I'll say about Kawhi, you mentioned the rumblings about him not being happy there. I don't get any ulterior motive from Kawhi. Like, I don't understand what could be an ulterior motive. If it's money, you've got another year on your deal. The Spurs are the only team that can offer you the Supermax, 5 years, $219 million approximately. So if it's money, then you would want to stay in San Antonio and win there and get that Supermax contract. If it's winning, there's no need to leave. I don't want to hear, I can't believe he would think we can't get free agents. You got one of the biggest free agents in the last 5 years, which is LaMarcus Aldridge. The Knicks can't say that. The Lakers can't say that.
And you're on LeBron's list. I don't think they're necessarily going to get
Oh,
the
the
run.
Spurs?
Yeah, Spurs.
I don't think it'd be great if he did.
But I'm saying, it's not like people discount them. They're not Milwaukee or Utah, where people are like, I am not signing there.
It's a great history.
Right.
You got a coach that's won 5 rings, and I could argue at least the last 4, he never had the most talented team. So I don't get what the ulterior motive could be.
What's the advice he's getting? So
well,
that's what I was going to ask you. What is your
medical doctors have not cleared him. And look.
Wait, we know that for a fact that his doctors have not cleared him?
The Spurs have cleared him.
Right. But
his own outside doctors have not cleared him. That's what Greg Popovich has said.
Yes.
Okay, so and I'm going to side with Kawhi somewhat hesitantly, but I do feel like everybody, you know your body better than anybody else. And Kawhi has always been a guy that he has to be 110% way before this injury. From the moment he got with the Spurs, he has not wanted to play through nagging pain and injuries, and that's fine, but I'm going to side with him, like I said, hesitantly.
It's hard for me to side with him, man. They have been so cautious with every player ever. They have been so... Greg Popovich invented DNP rest. He is the reason why the league had to come out and change one of the reasons, the back-to-backs and stuff, because they didn't want guys resting on national television. They punted on a chance to win a championship because they had Tim Duncan have a knee surgery he wanted to wait to have back in 2000 because they wanted his long-term health. The Spurs, for me, have earned all of the benefit of the doubt. Kawhi's earned some benefit of the doubt as well, but the Spurs absolutely.
Here's the thing. Can I say this one thing? Boston, they're not, I wouldn't call them the Spurs, but they are a great organization. They sent Isaiah Thomas out there. I don't know if Kawhi's looking at this, but Isaiah Thomas played through a bad hip, was an inspirational story and all that last year. What do? They reward him by trading him. Now, whereas he could have got close to the max contract last summer, now, or this summer.
Mid-level exception.
Yeah. And he's hurt again. The hip is out, hurt again. So that may be what Kawhi is looking at. And that's what I'm looking at when I say, look, no matter how good a sports organization is, their motivation may be different than the player's motivation.
And the question is, does this affect his long-term situation with the Spurs? I think at this point we'll have to discuss. But you talked about the Celtics. New topic now. They can't seem to catch a break with injuries, speaking of which.